This story begins in a restaurant where a young woman named Justine orders mashed potatoes with no protein as she is a vegetarian. While she's eating, her mother notices a piece of meat in the food and becomes furious, so she goes to confront the chef. Justine's father tries to calm the situation down by offering his daughter some of his plate, but she refuses. Shortly after, the family takes Justine to college, which turns out to be a veterinary school. Her parents try to contact her older sister, Alexia, who also studies there, so she can meet her. But since Alexia doesn't answer her phone or show up, they decide to leave Justine alone. Once in her dorm room, Justine is listening to music when she is surprised by her roommate, Adrian. She is confused because she had requested to share the room with a girl, but Adrian explains that he is gay and that to the administration, it's practically the same thing. Suddenly, some older students in masks burst into the room. Adrian, understanding the situation, hands Justine a ski pole to prepare herself. The older students forcibly pull all the freshmen from their rooms and drag them down the hallways. Justine is scared, but Adrian assures her it's just a game. They are taken to the basement, but instead of a punishment, they discover it's all part of a big welcome party. In the midst of the chaos, Justine formally introduces herself to Adrian. Later, Justine finds her sister Alexia, who is visibly drunk. Alexia hugs her and says she's glad she's there, commenting that their mother would have devoured her if she had stayed home for one more year. Justine doesn't understand what she means. Alexia decides to take Justine somewhere special and leads her to a dark laboratory. There, she shows her some old photos hanging on the wall. They are pictures of previous generations of students, including one of their own parents, and everyone is covered in what looks like blood. Alexia explains to Justine that it's a tradition and that she will go through it too. That night, Justine wants to go to sleep because she is exhausted, but Alexia forbids it, telling her that the freshmen can't go to bed before the upperclassmen. The next day, the new students are gathered for the initiation ceremony. The upperclassmen give them a speech about how they are a family now and must learn to obey. After the speech, they force them to go through the final test. They drench them with buckets of blood and line them up, forcing each one to eat a piece of raw meat, which turns out to be a rabbit kidney. When it's Justine's turn, she refuses, explaining that she is a vegetarian and that her whole family is too. The upperclassmen don't believe her and call Alexia over to confirm it. To Justine's surprise, Alexia not only denies being a vegetarian, but tells her that she had to eat it herself last year. Under pressure, Alexia takes the raw kidney and shoves it into Justine's mouth. Later in the cafeteria, Justine sits with Adrian, who is having a very graphic conversation about whether AIDS originated from humans eating monkeys or having sex with them, which makes everyone at the table uncomfortable. During the night, Justine wakes up with an uncontrollable itch and goes to the bathroom, feeling very sick. The next morning, she goes to the university infirmary. The doctor examines the severe allergic reaction covering her body and diagnoses her with food poisoning, likely caused by the raw kidney. Justine mentions to the doctor that, besides the rash, she feels like her stomach is empty and she's very hungry. The doctor prescribes her an ointment and tells her a long anecdote about how medical residents treated an overweight patient poorly, advising Justine to stay out of trouble and find a quiet corner while the hazing passes. As she leaves, an older student stops her and scolds her for not wearing the club clothes that were mandated for that day. Justine says she doesn't have that type of clothing, so the upperclassman punishes her by forcing her to wear a diaper. Embarrassed, Justine goes to Alexia's room to ask for clothes to borrow. Alexia treats her coldly, scolding her for not eating the kidney without protesting. Finally, she lends her a dress and high heels. As she leaves, Justine, who can barely walk in the heels, discovers that the upperclassman also threw her mattress into the hallway, so she has to carry it back to her room all by herself. The next day in the cafeteria, something strange happens. Justine, the lifelong vegetarian, takes a raw steak and hides it in the pocket of her lab coat. The cook sees her, scolds her, and forces her to pay for it. Adrian sees her and asks why she did it, but Justine admits she doesn't know. To help her, Adrian takes her to a kebab restaurant off campus so she can eat meat without being judged. While they're there, a truck driver strikes up a conversation and mentions that he delivers pigs to the vet school. The man notices the voracious appetite with which Justine devours the meat. That same night, or very early in the morning, Adrian wakes up and finds Justine in the kitchen, eating raw meat straight from the refrigerator. She lies and tells him she was just looking for cereal. In class, the professor calls on Justine and Adrian. He accuses them of cheating, as their exams are identical. The professor assumes that Justine, the prodigy, let Adrian copy her. He pressures Justine, telling her he prefers students like Adrian, who have to put in the effort, and not her, who just demoralizes the rest. While he scolds her, Justine chews on her own hair. Finally, she confesses that Adrian was the one who copied. Immediately afterward, Justine runs to the bathroom and vomits up a hairball. Later, Justine finds Alexia to hang out. Alexia tells her a story about a one-armed man she dated. Justine asks if she thinks she's weird, but Alexia says no, that she, Alexia, has always been the crazy one in the family. Then they try to pee standing up just because they're crazy, but Justine ends up getting pee all over herself. That night, Justine asks Alexia if she can sleep in her room because she doesn't feel well. Alexia decides to wax Justine, offering to give her a Brazilian. Justine, noticing Alexia is using the same allergy ointment as her, agrees, but the pain of the hot wax is too much. The wax strip gets stuck. Alexia goes to get scissors to cut it off. Justine panics, trembling, and in a sudden movement, she kicks Alexia. The movement causes Alexia to cut her own finger off with the scissors. At the sight of blood, Alexia faints. Justine calls 911. While waiting for the ambulance, she stares at the severed finger on the floor. At the hospital, the girl's parents are there. The doctor informs them they couldn't reattach the finger because it wasn't found. Alexia, covering for her sister, lies and tells her parents their dog, Quickie, ate the finger. Outside the hospital, the father talks to Justine. He sadly tells her they will have to put Quickie down. He explains that an animal that has tasted human flesh is no longer safe, because if it liked it, it will attack anyone. Later, we see Alexia taking Justine to a secluded area by the side of a highway. Alexia tells her they need to talk, but Justine is reluctant and says she has nothing to say to her. The conversation becomes tense when Justine accuses Alexia of acting just like their mother, which Alexia flatly denies. Justine complains that Alexia only brought her out there to watch the wildlife, and Alexia replies that she's being a bit aggressive, suggesting she has anger management issues, which Justine also denies. In the middle of this argument, Alexia spots a car approaching in the distance and unexpectedly runs into the road. The driver swerves to avoid her, loses control, and the car crashes violently into a tree. Justine runs to her sister, screaming, asking if she's crazy and if she's okay. Alexia, unharmed, gets up and calmly walks toward the wrecked vehicle. Justine tries to stop her, saying there's nothing they can do for the victims, but Alexia ignores her. As Justine watches in horror, Alexia pulls one of the people out of the car and begins to devour them. Alexia spits something out and turns to her sister, telling her she did it for her and that she has to learn. The scene cuts to anatomy class, where Justine and Adrian are performing a dissection. Adrian takes the opportunity to offer Justine his condolences for her sister's accident, commenting that what happened with her finger was awful. However, Justine responds with surprising coldness, saying it's not a big deal and that, after all, it's just a finger. Shortly after, Justine finds Adrian and Alexia playing video games together in the dorm room. Alexia tells Justine she's lost weight and that the dress she lent her fits better now. She immediately warns her not to become anorexic because it's disgusting, and she knows exactly how that starts. Justine defends herself, assuring Alexia she isn't like that and doesn't need to make herself throw up. Alexia, without stopping the game, brings up the finger incident, sarcastically asking if Justine really decided she had to taste human flesh, starting specifically with her finger. She mockingly adds that she hopes it tasted good and smelled like curry. The next hazing ritual takes place in a dark room where the upperclassmen push Justine and other students inside. A guy is locked in with her, and the upperclassmen tell them they won't be let out until they are totally green, implying they must mix their body paint or fluids. The guy tries to calm Justine down, telling her they'll take it slow. A few seconds later, the guy comes out screaming in pain, his mouth bloody. Justine appears later in the bathroom, smoking and cleaning herself up. Adrian finds her and asks what happened, if the guy touched her or raped her. Justine denies it. Adrian, confused, asks her if she's into this or if it turns her on, trying to understand if she has sadomasochistic fantasies. Justine reacts defensively, asking him if he's going to kiss her. Adrian says no, and Justine, feigning indifference, says she's going to sleep, but Adrian mutters that what's happening to her is messed up. That night, Justine gets into Adrian's bed seeking comfort, but while they are together, Justine takes the opportunity and bites him hard on the arm. Adrian, in the moment, doesn't say anything and just leaves. Days pass, and it's clear Adrian is upset with Justine because he won't speak to her and is ignoring her. Feeling devastated and rejected, Justine goes to another campus party. She starts drinking uncontrollably, just as Alexia arrives with her group, announcing that they know how to have fun. Alexia finds Justine completely out of it, while other students cheer her on. Alexia tries to take her away, telling her they need to talk, but Justine resists violently. Sometime after the violent confrontation at the party, Justine wakes up in her room. Turning over, she sees Adrian sleeping next to her, which momentarily calms her. However, when she tries to wake him, she realizes he isn't responding. Horror washes over her as she lifts the sheet and discovers Adrian's leg has been brutally torn apart, and he is lying lifeless in the bed. Her first reaction is absolute shock. Justine panics, believing she might have done it herself in her sleep, but then she looks across the room. There she finds her sister, Alexia, sitting on the floor, completely covered in blood and calmly eating. Justine understands in that instant that it was Alexia who attacked and killed Adrian. In a moment of decision, instead of blaming her sister or running away, Justine approaches her. She takes Alexia, who seems to be in a trance, and leads her to the shower. There, she washes the blood off her sister, silently accepting the dark nature they both share. Sometime later, and after the legal consequences of what happened to Adrian, Justine returns to her parents' house. We see her sitting at the family table, but she pushes away a plate of vegetables, saying she can't eat anymore. Her father watches her calmly and tells her she shouldn't take the situation personally. He sits with her and assures her that nothing that happened is her fault, and Justine, in a low voice, replies that she knows. The father adds that it's not Alexia's fault either. At that moment, Justine asks what he means, and he decides it's time to reveal the family secret. The father begins to tell her a story about the past. He explains that when Alexia was born, she was the family's little princess, and they always took her everywhere because everyone adored her. He mentions that Alexia always stood out and that maybe she should have bought into politics, but in the end, she just got used to being herself. The father sadly admits that they, as parents, didn't know how to find a good solution for her. Then the conversation turns to Justine's mother. The father confesses that at the beginning of their relationship, she made it very difficult for him. He tells her that in college, she insisted he was just her best friend, which made him very angry because he knew she wasn't interested in anyone else. The father continues, recounting that one day they finally had their first kiss. He pauses and with a meaningful look, tells Justine that in that exact moment often, he understood everything. With this revelation, he makes Justine understand that her mother shares the same nature as her and Alexia, and that he has lived with it his entire life. Finally, the father looks at Justine with compassion and tells her that, unlike what happened with Alexia, he is sure that she, Justine, will find a solution. The movie ends with Justine processing this revelation, finally understanding the origin of her impulses and her family's true legacy.